Mommy's back and Dirty Dom's in trouble. Hey now, where's Liv? If you ask me, she's probably backstage trying to figure out the quickest way out of Ottawa because Rhea's on her tail. Enough of that. That was fun, though. These are my assorted thoughts on the July 8th, 2024 WWE RAW. Welcome to Silo Voice Wrestling on YouTube and the Silo Voice Wrestling podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jason C. McLean. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and of course, ring that bell for notifications to get all my wrestling hot takes, cold takes, simmering takes, wrestling opinion videos, reviews of WWE premium live events like my Money in the Bank review, which you should check out after this video, and of course, assorted thoughts on SmackDown and Raw. Now, I'm recording this July 10th, 2024 in the afternoon, so a few days after Raw. Now, before this Raw started, I wasn't sure that Rhea was going to return on this show. I mean, it makes sense considering everyone thinks she's going to take the title back at SummerSlam, which she probably is. But I hadn't heard any of those reports of people spotting her in the streets of Ottawa or at the airport or wherever it was. However, by the time she actually showed up, I had a pretty good idea she was going to be there. First, there was Damian Priest talking to someone on the phone. Then there was Liv helping Dom prepare in the Judgment Day locker room. For those of you who remember the Attitude Era, this is actually quite similar to Triple H, the current booker, of course, and Trish Stratus getting caught working on a match by Stephanie, mirrored here pretty well. In this case, they got caught by the other members of Judgment Day, and this led to Priest refusing to tell the other members of Judgment Day what his big surprise was, of course, that Rhea was coming back. Maybe he suspected that Finn was, in fact, in cahoots with Liv. Another thing that tipped me off was the placement of the Rey Mysterio, Zelina Vega versus Dominic Mysterio, Liv Morgan match in the main event slot. I'm not saying a match involving these people doesn't deserve a main event spot. After all, half of it is a WrestleMania 39 rematch, which we already had last week. It was a fun match to watch. Everyone got involved, looked strong. And with just a few minutes left in the show, Dom pinned his dad for the first time ever. At this point, I really knew what was going to happen. Liv jumps on Dom. They celebrate. Dom tries to push back, ends up falling on top of her, then starts to get into it just as we hear, "This is my brutality." Second singing in the same video. I won't do that too much, I promise. But yep, Mami was back. She was in a bad mood. Liv escaped, leaving Rhea alone in the ring with Dom. He tried to hug her, but she was having none of his BS. And he chased her down the aisle, very similar to how Eddie Guerrero was trying to get into China's good graces, as some people online shared a video of to point it out. They definitely love their mirroring in WWE, especially in this storyline. Now, by the end of the show, I figured she was going to show up. They dropped so many hints, and it was just the right time. But still, I was excited to see it happen. I'm looking forward to this SummerSlam match. I'm looking forward to see if Dom actually ends up staying with Liv right now to be the complete heel faction versus Rhea on the babyface side. I mean, yeah, maybe Liv was just using him to get to Rhea, but she could continue to do that for a little bit. The thing is, Rhea's a massive babyface right now, and I don't think they can make Dom a massive babyface. And I also think the Judgment Day is pretty surely going to split up now with Finn going on the Liv side and Priest and Rhea staying as babyfaces. It's happening. I'm glad it's happening. This is going to be a huge part of SummerSlam, one I'm looking very much forward to. And it started on, well, it basically came to its apex on this episode of Raw in Ottawa. And it's interesting to note that Rhea last appeared when she gave up the title on the Raw episode in Montreal that I was at in person. And she returned in Ottawa. Now, for those of you American viewers who don't know Canadian geography that well, Ottawa is actually closer to Montreal than it is to Toronto, despite being in the same province as Toronto. So, yeah, it just happened just down the road for me. It's almost like she left and then she went down the road and showed up again. Forget the fact that they went to Europe and Saudi Arabia and all those places. Anyways, just a little bit of trivia for you. That, of course, wasn't the only thing on the show. After a replay of what happened in the World Heavyweight Championship match at Money in the Bank, CM Punk enters to a massive pop. Chats with the crowd a bit, says he's not going to forget about Drew McIntyre or ever let him claim a championship. And then Seth Rollins showed up. Now, this was really interesting. Obviously, Rollins and Punk is a story that needs to continue at some point. And they sort of teased it after Money in the Bank, after what happened. I kind of hope that they're not going to make a triple threat at SummerSlam, that it's still going to be Drew and Punk, the grudge match. But maybe putting Seth into it, making it a triple threat, could be interesting as well, too. There's two people who bitterly hate Punk, one person who Punk bitterly hates, and two people who don't really like each other but kind of respect each other. So I think it's better with the one-on-one, because that's what people want to see right now. And maybe this was just a sort of a way to get Drew off the show for a week, to remind everyone this story is happening for the future, and they're going to go back to the regular one after, especially now seeing as Priest is going to give Seth a shot at the title if he beats Gunther, which he's of course not going to do. Anyways, I think in this promo exchange, Punk is usually amazing at promos, and he was great in the early part when he was just talking, and he made some good points. But I think ultimately at the end, Seth was the more sympathetic one. The crowd was even singing his song, even though the crowd is definitely pro-Punk. But just that last little bit where Punk apologized and then sort of retracted part of the apology, it showed that Punk maybe has more heel tendencies and Rollins definitely more babyface, even though both of them have been heels and babyfaces and excelled at both. But yeah, I think in this rare instance, Rollins actually kind of won the promo battle to the point where Punk really couldn't retort. But of course, he'll definitely be back to retort against Drew, maybe Rollins in the future. But a win for Seth, and hopefully this is just a reminder of things to come in the future. But in the near future, hopefully we're still going with Punk versus Drew. Intercontinental Champion Sami Zayn came out to a massive pop. It wasn't a hometown pop, it was a home country pop, but it was also really a down the highway from his hometown pop. Ottawa and Montreal are very close, like I mentioned earlier. Kind of really nice promo talking about how he's not really an underdog, he's a champion now. The man he defeated on Saturday, Braun Breaker, showed up for a bit of a chat, and then a surprise attack. And as officials and Adam Pearce were ushering Braun out, Ilya Dragunov came out and decided to help out Sami, which led to quite a good Ilya versus Braun match until Braun threw a chair and got disqualified, kept attacking Ilya. An injured Sami came out, took on Braun. Braun downed him and Ilya as well, who came back. And the segment ended with Braun standing tall over both Sami and Ilya. Now, regarding the Intercontinental title picture in SummerSlam, I'd actually be really cool with the triple threat match between these three guys. I think it's a great way to potentially put the title on Braun while still keeping Sami Zayn strong, or maybe have Sami defeat Ilya and not Braun, or something to that effect, keep that feud going. Who knows? I think that the follow-up match of a triple threat between these three could maybe even be better than a Sami Braun rematch. So I like where this story is going. I'm also starting to wonder if maybe Jey Uso has a little bit more to do with the Wyatt family than he's letting on. Yes, they're clearly showing up for Chad Gable, but Uso's been in the ring for the past 2 times. And even though he says he wants nothing to do with them, and he did his nice little yeet bow out, I thought that was great. Get out of Dodge. Twice in a row, he does have the Fireflies. Maybe he's on their side. I don't know. I think he might play more in this story than he's letting on, or people are letting on at this point. But after the latest Wyatt video aired and Chad Gable was complaining to Pierce, Pierce goes into his office and sees Bo Dallas. We don't know what the conversation was, so we don't have confirmation on some people's suspicions that Pierce is actually working with the Wyatts. I don't think that's the case, but I think it's actually nice that we're seeing Bo Dallas without the Uncle Howdy mask in the video, and then in reality, kayfabe reality, backstage talking to Pierce. They're really emphasizing that they're spooky, maybe very violent, tough people who like to wear masks, but they're not supernatural. He's negotiating with Pierce in his non-masked, non-Uncle Howdy form. So I think that's an interesting dimension they're adding to this story. They're bringing it more into the kayfabe world of the WWE while still keeping the spooky elements there. I do like this. I also like how they're setting up a potential blow-off match between Pete Dunne and Sheamus. I don't think they'll be teaming up again. I think the Brawling Brutes are done. Maybe a small alliance and then another breakup. But I thought Pete Dunne was in a tag team on the other brand, but it made sense to bring him in here. Maybe settle that storyline. Of course, they brought him here in the context of Bronson Reed fighting him, and then Sheamus coming out to help him after Bronson Reed decided to keep beating him up after beating him. So Sheamus saved him, but Pete Dunne was having none of it. I think this might be maybe we'll get one match out of it, but I think they've both moved on. Damage Control's Kairi Sane, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky beat Lyra Valkyria, Caden Carter, and Katana Chance using all the tricks in the book. And then they got taken out post-match by Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, and the returning Sonya Deville, which had me wondering for a moment, and kind of has me still wondering if they're turning them babyface. Damage Control, that is. Because clearly the three ladies who beat them up are definitely coded as heels right now. Of course, they just beat up a bunch of babyfaces. They just beat a bunch of babyfaces in the match using their usual tricks, and they haven't really changed their characters. The fact that these three didn't touch the three who had just lost and only went for Damage Control leads me to believe that maybe this is a potential feud with Damage Control as babyfaces. I mean, they're away from Bayley. Bayley's on another show. Bayley's a babyface there. They could be babyfaces here until maybe going back to being heels. Who knows? We'll see. I just found it interesting. And these were my assorted thoughts for the July 8th, 2024 WWE RAW. Of course, that's not everything. I didn't go into detail on all the matches or all the backstage segments. I didn't even fully go into detail on the Wyatt 6 video. I didn't mention Braun Strowman and Awesome Truth versus the Judgment Day, but I don't always have the time for that in these videos. These are just assorted thoughts. Do you agree with my takes? Are you excited for the Rhea versus Liv match at SummerSlam, which I'm sure is going to happen? Let me know in the comments. Follow at Silo Wrestling on X, at SVS Reviews on Instagram and Facebook, and me at Jason C. McLean on X and Instagram. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and of course, ring that bell for notifications. Right about now, you should be seeing a little box you can click on to see my Money in the Bank review. I definitely recommend checking that one out. And later in the week, I'll be back with another wrestling opinion video and assorted thoughts on SmackDown. For Silo Voice Studios in Montreal, I'm Jason C. McLean.